wedding planning podcast.
Do you find yourself down an Instagram rabbit hole at 1 a.m. looking at bouquets you can't even remember how you found?
Are you torn between 12 photographers who all feel right, but you can't tell who's actually in budget?
Or are you overwhelmed by choice and secretly hoping someone will just hand you a list of suppliers and tell you what to do?
Today we're talking how to make the most of your supplier searches so you find the perfect team, stay sane and don't waste hours scrolling only to end up with 47 open tabs and no decisions made.
Hi!
Hello.
So, yeah, we've said what we're going to talk about, but it's just about saying your suppliers aren't just your service providers. In actual fact, I'd really hate it if someone said to me, oh, you're just a service provider. I'd be like, no.
That's a little dismissive.
I'm in your team. I'm on your side. I'm in your team. We're here to make your wedding day perfect. We want to make it run smoothly, keep your stress levels down, and bring that vision to life. So a good supplier is worth their weight in gold. I think we've said this over and over again about finding the best suppliers for you, but finding them does take a little bit of strategy. So that's kind of where we come in, what we're going to talk about.
So let's kick off then. Priorities, it is everything. What do we need to be thinking about before we even really start searching? Where do we start before we start?
Where do we start before we start? Well, before we start at what matters the most. So we've said before, what are your priorities? Like, is it your photos? Is it your food? Is it your ceremony? What's your budget?
Yes, good one.
Budget. Let's start with your budget. But where are you going to spend your budget? So looking at your priorities, getting those out, going, actually, the photography is really important to me and I want a live artist to paint my ceremony.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're your top two. So let's find out, what do they cost, and start proportioning your budget and working out where you spend it.
And being realistic. You can't, unless you're very lucky, you're not going to be able to have it all. So those priorities, actually, you've got to look at those with a really cool head. Yeah,
definitely. And I'd say a lot of the time people go, well, my priorities are this, so therefore what I've got left in my budget is this, so that's how much I'm going to spend on food. And I have to step in and go, I hate to tell you, but £200 on food for 120 people isn't going to cut it.
Unless we go to the Golden Arches.
Well, even then, for 120?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what you're getting, but yeah, maybe a cheeseburger.
But not a McFlurry.
No, not that. So, yeah, you've got to think about where your budget's going, what it's going on, and be realistic in looking at that. And I think one of the hardest things that couples find when I start speaking to them is that, how do you be realistic when you haven't got a clue how much something costs?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I come in. And actually, any supplier that you work with will be able to give you an idea of what their costs, what their fees look like, what that includes. So you've got to start, before you start, with an idea of budget, what matters most, and what your style and how you want your day to feel. So again, things we've gone backwards and forwards on, how you make a mood board, what your Pinterest search looks like, but refined, keep it focused. But it also means that when you're talking to suppliers, you're not giving your time to suppliers that just don't fit. And that's a really lovely way to kind of save your time, save your energy, and get focus.
And I think actually I was talking to a bride only last week about this, and she made the point. She said, it's very easy, you get so sort of carried away, and the overwhelm actually of organising weddings. She said, I'm finding it hard to keep track of information. She said, I've now started going, she's gone old school. She's a young girl, but she's started writing things down. Yeah. She's got a little notebook, and so if she gets a quote, she's writing it down under the heading of photographers or whatever it is. And I think that's really valid. And whether you're a spreadsheet queen, or you do everything sort of in the virtual world, or your pen and ink, once you start making those inquiries, properly keep track.
Yeah. And I'd say when I start working with couples, there's a tab on their spreadsheet that I work with them on, and it's got all the suppliers' quotes, and they can kind of look at it and look and see what suppliers I'd recommend. They can pick and choose from them, or they can add their own. And that has, what does it cost? What does that include?
Yeah. And that's a critical one,
That's a critical one. So it is about just kind of trying to be a bit boring and admin-led to get the right get to the right budget, get to the right feel. But
because it will pay off. It will. Further down the line, you will be so glad that you've done that.
Yeah, definitely. And so then I suppose it's about where you go. Where are you looking for your suppliers? How are you finding them? And Google definitely works. And we can look at when you Google something, obviously you're used to this in any area of life. You've got your sponsored results.
Sponsored ads, yes, of course.
And then you've got your organic, kind of who comes up first. And as a small business owner, all of this is really tricky to navigate. So I would say look through more than just the top results.
Again, it's about investing some time in this, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're not enlisting someone to help you do that bit, then just take, it doesn't have to be a stressful time either. Just firstly look at the look and feel of those suppliers that come up on the Google results. I'm not saying avoid ads. I do ads because actually you want to be at the top. You want people to choose you. So don't necessarily avoid them, but remember that if they're at the top of the page and it says sponsors, it's because they paid for it.
Yeah.
And this is the same. We'll talk about this a bit more later about what suppliers pay for. But yeah, I think, where are you searching? So local wedding fairs, because you're going to get people that are close to you, that live locally, that work locally. So the great sustainability angle, but also a lot of the time they'll have worked with other suppliers locally together, and that's always lovely.
Well, we've talked about that before, but actually suppliers who sort of recommend each other and happily work with each other, that tells you something.
Yeah.
And also it's that shorthand knowledge as well. They know how each other works. They know if there's anything particular they need to be across, or so-and-so does things that way, so I'll just dovetail with that. It can be really, really useful.
Yeah, and they've most likely worked in a few of the local venues as well. So if your venue is, wherever your venue is, go to a wedding fair local to your venue.
And I would just say I'm not a great wedding fair. It's not my natural habitat. But something I have observed about smaller wedding fairs, just because they're in a sort of village hall or something, don't write it off as, there won't be anything there that's sort of big enough or sexy enough. Suppliers go to all sorts, and if they've got a quiet weekend and there's a wedding fair on their doorstep, chances are they'll be there. And also sometimes the smaller ones, if you are someone who finds that overwhelm just too much, a smaller one, particularly at the start of your journey, can be a really good way of dipping your toe in and kind of going, okay, this is how these work.
Yeah.
And there are fewer perhaps suppliers to get around. You can maybe spend a bit more time getting to know people and what they're offering.
Yeah.
So don't rule anything out just because it's small.
I have done wedding fairs of every shape, size and variety.
Yeah.
And for me, the slightly larger, like medium-sized ones that are really carefully curated work brilliantly, because you know the style you're going to, you know what kind of supplies you're going to get. The really big ones, the expo size ones, whoa. If you suffer from any form of overwhelm or anxiety around people in space, just don't.
So an exhibition centre is probably not going to be up your boulevard, really, is it?
No, and what you said a minute ago that really rings true for me is I do quite a few smaller ones because I have time to speak to people. Now, we will say time and time again, you've got to get on with your suppliers. You want to get to know them, you want to chat to them. So go to those smaller ones and go and just have a chat. You'll get way more out of it than you will if you've got... I did one beginning of this year, I think. And the selling point as a wedding fair to the suppliers was we're going to get... I think it was 3,000 people through the door.
Holy moly.
I didn't speak to a single couple for more than 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, that's no good. Because I want to get to know you, you want to get to know me. So, yeah, if it's just a day out, if it's a fun day out and you want to go with your wedding party, your best mate, your mum, whoever it is, lovely. Go out, you get a goodie bag, have fun. If you actually want to find suppliers, the smaller ones are best.
Yeah.
So, yeah, looking at Googling things, wedding fairs, word of mouth.
Now, that's an interesting one because unless you've got people who have got married recently that are in your sort of circle, that can be quite tricky. But again, a bride I worked with last year said she just decided to go full on shameless, and in every sort of pocket of her life, so work, her choir, down at her gym, everywhere she went, I'm getting married, does anyone know anyone else who's got married recently? Brilliant. And she said that actually proved fantastic for her. So I think she initially got more than she bargained for because everybody was incredibly helpful. But, you know, people really want to celebrate good suppliers and are really keen to pass that experience, that positive experience. She was also past some experience of people who not, anyway. But she said that was just such a helpful way to get off the starting blocks. And she came away by the end of sort of 2 weeks of going everywhere she went on roller skates with a megaphone, going, I'm getting married. She just filled a little black book of contacts to really start exploring.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. I think as well, you have got to maybe know the people you're taking those recommendations from, because everyone wants to tell you about their wedding.
Yeah.
Is it the same as what you're trying to achieve with your wedding?
Absolutely.
But yes, word of mouth is key, and as suppliers we love it.
We do love a bit. But I would say word of mouth, personal, people either known to you or who are known through friends of friends or family or whatever. If you put something on social media, just be aware that you may get answers from people who are wedding suppliers.
Oh, do you know what? I could talk about this. So there are some really, down where we are, West Sussex, there's a wedding supplier group. And there is a supplier whose husband posts any time someone asks for this specific area of supplier help. The husband posts this glowing review. And it's only if you're in the industry that you'd have seen and know that
that's
actually...
That's the husband.
That's the husband.
Yeah.
And I kind of think
great
all the time...
PR team, but, you know...
Yeah, but I'm thinking, come on, give it a rest. So, yeah, do be careful with the likes of the social media
You want
recommendations.
Authenticity, you know.
You do. Wedding blogs are great. Venues have preferred or recommended supplier lists. So, preferred supplier list for a venue normally means you do need to work with those suppliers only.
Yeah.
So quite often you want to make sure you know who they are before you book that venue. Recommended is normally people that have worked in those venues and that they have worked with before, would recommend, and they're great to look at. But you don't have to stick with them. Something to look at, though, it's a really nice way to start sometimes if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed by that. And then directories, I suppose.
Yeah, directories I think is an interesting one because there are many, many, many directories and some for sort of that separate out into different wedding supplier
there's alternative ones, there's mainstream, there's lots of different varieties.
And that can be very helpful. But a bit like the sort of Google reviews that are sponsored, most directories are paid for. So just because somebody appears at the front of the directory and has a huge sort of photograph and maybe a bit more copy than anybody else, they have paid for that pole position.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they are better than anybody else. And just again, a bit like the Google reviews, take your time. And if you think, there's too much here, just kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to do 5 today, 3 today, depending on how time rich or poor you are. You don't have to do it all in one hit, but just keep that in mind. If somebody is in a directory and it looks, oh wow, all whistles and bells, they have paid for that placement.
Wildly Wed, the real wedding planning podcast.
So we were just sort of saying, don't overwhelm yourself. Look at your own pace, really. But how do you get to that sort of shortlist phase?
Well, I think 3 to 5, maximum 5 suppliers per category is where you should be looking to inquire. And when I speak to couples, I give them quite a decent list of my recommended suppliers and I ask them to choose 3. And I think 3 is a really good way, especially if you speak to them and see whether they're different budgets, different style. What is it? I think 3 suppliers per category is still a lot of suppliers that you need to find and speak to and inquire with and understand. So I would say that's a good place to start. And what you want to do when you're inquiring and shortlisting is you want to compare like for like, which can be really tricky. The reason some suppliers will put their pricing on their websites, and generally that's if they've got quite a clear-cut package. So, for example, I have quite clear-cut packages.
Yeah.
My pricing's online. Some suppliers can't do that. For florists, for example.
Of course, because there's variation.
It's really hard because when are you getting married? What time of year is it?
What flowers do you want?
What flowers do you want? Are they local or are they,
being flown in from goodness knows where?
Exactly. How many displays do you want? How big is your bouquet? There's so many variables. So don't think that suppliers that aren't putting their prices out there are trying to trick you. They're not. A lot of the time, they simply can't until they've had a chat with you. So go with the ones that you like the look of. Obviously, a lot of them will give you kind of a minimum spend, and that's great. So you can go, oh, okay, that minimum spend's a bit too high or whatever. But comparing like for like is important in the price, in the style. What's included when you talk to caterers, when you're looking at a venue that provides catering, bar. Some venues that do their in-house catering will give you a 3-course meal, half bottle of wine, canapes and drinks reception drink. Other caterers, if you've got dry hire, make sure you're comparing like for like and you're getting a similar kind of meal package. And looking at their full portfolios, so not just their kind of what they've pinned at the top of their Instagram page, because like every supplier, we're going to put the things that we think look best at the top of our Instagram page. Just having a look through, checking out.
Again, that comes down to time, doesn't it? It's invest the time.
Yeah, and remember, this is part of the fun. Enjoy this part. This is part of your wedding. Your wedding isn't just the day. Your wedding is all the planning, all the excitement leading up to it, building that excitement. But also check out Google reviews. So we've talked a bit about reviews. We talked about directories. One of the things I would say is really hard as a supplier is getting reviews on every platform. So
loads gun points at head. I hate it.
Yeah, it's really hard. So basically what happens is any platform you're part of, any directory you're part of will say, get more reviews and then people will book you. Okay. But once you've got married and you've used a supplier, that supplier is then going to say to you, please could you give me a review? Now, do we want to ask you for 7 reviews to cover every directory? No, we don't.
No.
And I would say Google is the most valuable to suppliers, and therefore Google is the place you should look.
Yeah, no, I think that's really valid because it is just a nightmare to do that. It's just like, would you mind leaving 16 different reviews on different sites?
And then also I've been like nominated for this award. Can you
vote for me? Oh yeah, you've got to do a testimonial for that.
Too much. So we know that communication is really important with your suppliers, and I guess, Vicky, what do you need to know when it comes to inquiring, when it comes to couples saying, I've chosen this person, I want to ask them, what do you want to know in the first inquiry?
Well, for me, and again, it's a bit like, we were just saying it will be different for every supplier. But for me, I need the basics. I need to know the date. I need to know the venue and the sort of time, ideally, that you might want your ceremony. That's not a deal breaker, but a sort of an overarching idea of the details of the day. Guest numbers. Because actually that makes a difference to me if we're going to be in a field with 180 people or whether we're going to be in a very small ceremony room with, 2.5 people. It's that kind of thing. And also, I suppose for me, the question I always ask is not really about the visuals, but how do you want your ceremony to feel?
The feeling.
And it's really, for me, about getting to know that couple. What is your ceremony dream? What is your vision for that? Are we wanting sort of full on Disney, or is this an elopement wedding with just the two of you and maybe your children? Yeah. So those are the sort of things that I would ask. But I think every supplier will need to know the basics, the sort of when, where, how, all of that sort of thing.
Every supplier except for me.
Except for you, because when they come to you, they go, right, Mrs. Planner, here's my blank canvas, here's my lovely shiny engagement ring, make magic happen.
Yeah, and actually, what do I need to know? I don't need to know anything, but what I will encourage people to do is think budget.
Yeah.
think budget and think what's your dream. What, have that. You'll have had a chat before you chat to me, but you might not know what your budget looks like because you might not understand. So that's where I can help you as well. So if you know absolutely nothing, just that you want to get married, that's great. Let's have a chat. So, I think other than me, most suppliers need a bit more, but I need nothing from you.
Oh, well, there you go. I need a bit more, but, we can be flexible about that. Gut feeling, I think that's always an interesting one to explore. So where do we stand on trusting our gut?
Well, it's the same as if you do anything in life, in your day-to-day life. If you go to your hairdressers and you're chatting to them and you think, oh, they've not quite got it, then you're probably not going to get your hair cut there. It's the same with suppliers, and we will harp on and on and on about you've got to get on with them, you've got to feel they're right. And we've said before, and we'll say it again, your photographer is the person you'll spend the most of your day with. Yeah. So, you've got to think about it in that way. But if you go for maybe a tasting and it just doesn't quite feel right, or it's not quite what you envisaged, firstly, you can ask and say something and say, oh, I was hoping for
X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. And see what the response is. Being really clear when you book a supplier to understand expectations. What is it you're expecting from them? What is it they're going to deliver? How often are you going to hear from them, or how close to the day? Because a lot of the time you'll book a supplier, you probably won't speak to them again until
much closer
to the time.
I think that's really key, actually. It's separating hope and expectation, because they are two very different things. So I think it's tell your suppliers what your hopes are for your day, and then match that with expectation and what they can deliver.
Let them set that. Yeah. Let them tell you and set your expectations. And if it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Jog on.
So we're at our top tips section of the episode. So this episode, we've got our supplier tip, and it is Jeff from Beautiful Day Weddings. So they are videographers, and I'll leave it to Jeff.
My top tip for your wedding videography would be to make sure your videographers have an up-to-date schedule for the day, and that your toastmaster or venue manager or your best man keep them updated on what's happening and when, so that they don't miss filming any special moments that you have taking place on your big day.
Thank you, Jeff. Just a little caveat to that. Remember to tell your wedding planner about your timetable. Let them keep on top of things.
Yeah, let us build it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Little shout out for wedding planners there. But actually it's really important. So it is a great tip. Moving now to our sustainability tip. And this one, I don't think there's anything new in this, but I always think it's worth underlining. Local. If sustainability is really important, and interestingly, there are some stats around that, certainly for younger couples, sustainability seems to be coming up as it does have a higher priority for a lot of couples.
I mean, look around what's going on in the world at the moment, and if you are aware, and if you're aware of certain people that don't seem to think things are changing in the world, there's a lot of people that know that they are.
Yeah.
So how can we be more responsible with our choices?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
And I think when you're searching for suppliers, the way to do that is literally start shopping local. Look at those on your doorstep in the first instance. I'm not saying that, necessarily they will be right for you, but that's probably as good a place to start as any if the sustainability issue is close to your heart. The other thing I think to look at around sustainability and local supplies is fewer miles, so you're using less diesel or all that sort of thing. Delivery as well might be free or cheaper. So sometimes you can look at the cost and go, oh, that's a little bit more than whoever's sort of 50 miles away. But they're going to charge delivery, whereas Joe Bloggs on my doorstep has delivery as part and parcel. Yeah,
and probably more flexibility as well. So if you're running late on a day or something, you want something done twice in a day, or you need a supplier to drop something off and pick something up.
Yeah.
Then the more local they are, the more likely it is that they'll be able to be that flexible for you.
For sure. So I think all of that, local businesses, and also, at the moment it is very tough out there for local businesses, full stop, whatever they're doing. So again, if sustainability is key to you, look at that. and see how you can kind of incorporate that into your day, which actually great sort of feel-good factor as well.
Yeah, and ask your suppliers what they're doing. Ask them. Say, this is really important to me. How can you help me do this? Or what is it that you do in your business that ticks these boxes? Because again, we're back to that gut feel. If they can't, if they don't, and some suppliers it's like there isn't much they can do. But ask the question and see what response you get, and hopefully you'll get an honest one, and it will help kind of guide you in the right direction.
For sure.
And then our DIY tip is kind of a bit about building your own supplier mood board, or just mood board in general. So instead of just saving loads of random posts that you've seen or screenshots and doing things like that, trying to create a single shareable mood board is quite a nice way to help your suppliers understand what you're looking for, because it can discount things, but it can also add in ideas. And if there's a way that your suppliers can add to that, or so for example, when I help a couple find a florist, we'll send them a mood board and the florist will send back a mood board. So it's a really good launching pad for suppliers to look at and work off. And it stops you getting lost in your camera roll. So you've got a million screenshots that you might have taken because you've seen something, you've loved it, you've liked the look of it. Where are they in your camera roll? It's quite like, oh God, yeah, I saw that. Where did I see it? So creating that cohesive
sort of centralised point.
Yeah, and I know I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. You only need about 3 to 5 images per section in your mood board. And remember that a lot of things you see on the likes of Pinterest are styled setup shoots. So they're not always real. So just a little pinch of reality and understanding what your budget and what your venue and what your suppliers are able to achieve. But a mood board is a lovely way to start. And what are we doing next, Vicky?
Well, we thought in our next episode, we're going to talk about, because we are coming up to that time of year, how to get the very best out of wedding fairs.
Yeah, great. We talked a bit about it today, but let's go into some detail.
We're going really deep diving.
Let's go. And so, that's the end of our episode today. But where can you find us? Well, we are on Instagram at wildlywedpod. Wildlywedpod.co.uk is our website. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and you can watch our very high-tech, very snazzy video podcasts on YouTube. So until next time, have fun.
Cheerio.
See ya.
Say I do to the Wildly Wed podcast. Follow us on Insta at Wildly Wed Pod.